Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, and I am the CEO of Leadershipity. I am a serial entrepreneur and EO member. I am the new author of Leading Winning Teams, and I am a global speaker, speaking in over 17 countries now. And I am super excited. And you probably best know me because I spent 13 years of professional baseball coaching and 3 World Series. And I am super excited as my guest today, Dawn Cartier. Did I get it
Thanks,
right?
Trent. Hey, you got it right. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
the jeweler, but not as fancy.
Oh, you're just as fancy because
Well,
I know some things about you that are pretty fancy, and we're going to share them today. And I am so excited, Dawn, to have you. Tell everybody real quick, CEO of CivTech, founder of that company. And CivTech Inc. is a brand that has worked in a lot of traffic and planning. You are an engineer by trade and a Sun Devil, and also a lumberjack. So this is going to be an interesting about how you did a lot of Arizona schools. All right,
yeah.
but grew up in St. Louis. Real quickly, tell people where they can find you, Don.
Oh, well, you can find me at my Scottsdale office because we're just working all the time, but you can find me at www.civtech.com. I'm also Dawn Cartier on both Instagram, on X, and on Facebook.
Very good. All right. So St. Louis born. So you're a Midwest girl, which I love, originally, and then moved around. And you're the daughter of an engineer. And at some point, did you think like, hey, I got to go build like, massive like power plants like your father was like developing?
No, pretty much George, he was fun because when I first got into the industry, he was still working. So, and we would end up in some meetings together. The company that he was a developer and I was working on the engineering company. We'd end up these meetings together. So very quickly realized I needed to call him George in these meetings so people didn't get too caught up in the dad thing. That it was a little weird. But no, George just told me I couldn't do it. So then we went and did it, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And this isn't where you started. You started thinking like, hey, probably a finance girl, business, and you head to Arizona State, and that is super cool. And you get a great internship with a Fortune 10 company going, whoa, this is going to be the peak. I'm going to be in finance. This is going to be incredible. What happens?
I thought it was going to be amazing, and it was the most boring summer I had ever had. And I pretty much left there thinking that is not my gig. And I was a little lost. I really didn't know what I was going to do. Because you're right, thought it was going to be finance. Let's head to Wall Street. But yeah, not my gig.
Yeah, I think some of the time, and people, if you're out there listening and you're developing, hey, like where you want to be, finding out what you don't want to do is really important too. Like, there's a lot of things that say, like, oh, that seems pretty cool. I just watched Wall Street. What a cool movie. I think I'd like to do that. Like, why don't you go find out? Like, check it out. And internship's a great way. Mentors in the area, always check that out. I always encourage people because it's crazy. You're married now 28 years, Dawn, 3 kids. I mean, your kids are killing it. Like you got a grad out of San Diego State, off in the world working now. You've got one down in Arizona. I don't even know how you let that happen, by the way. Go out to the enemy over there with at UA. And then of course you've got a youngin that headed off to the ballet at a young age, private school out in Boston, and is now fully in a role full time with the Boston Ballet.
That's true. This is crazy, right? They're all doing good. And it's probably the first time in my entire life where they're all in the good category. So I tell everybody 3 kids is very important because with 3 kids, there's always one in the good category. It's pretty easy to have 2 in the bad. It's really not really ever possible to have 3. So 3 kids was a good choice.
Yeah, that's funny because I have 5. And I'm like, and I try not to put them in categories, but like there's always a challenge, right? Like one of them is always facing something, and you're like, and it's funny, I thought Dawn, like, man, you know what it's like. Dawn and her husband are both entrepreneurs. They're extremely successful businesses and business owners. And man, when I think about that, like how hard that is, and then you've got the teen years and you're trying to do it right, trying to figure out how to model the right behaviors, come alongside them. And it's exhausting. And I thought, man, I can't wait till they're adults. Listen, adults have big problems. Like these aren't like these little things like, oh man, I don't know what prom dress I'm gonna wear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? Is that our biggest problem today? Like you got 3 choices and you don't know what to do. Now it's like, Hey, do I move to Europe and take a job or do I start my own thing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are big problems. Like these are challenges that I love. And I'm like, this is a lot of energy that I don't know if I have. Like, this is a lot of bandwidth.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think we thought the empty nesting would look a lot different than it does because the kids still need a lot of help. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's a real decision, right? Like, she's been out at Boston boarding schools. Hey, do I take a job with this company? Been in Boston a while. I could go to another company and move to a new city and try
mhm.
my hand at, the Boston Ballet obviously is fabulous, but you got Joffrey over in Chicago is great. You got the LA group that's fabulous. I mean, a lot of good options for a dancer with her kind of talent. And so, man, decisions, and you're like, holy good. Or do I just go to university and start like, hey, can I do this forever? You know?
You know, with her, I just told her no university. The fact that she left me early at the age of 14 to go pursue ballet at a boarding school in Boston. That just might be my finest parenting moment, by the way. But I was like, you better not go to college. Like, if you
Yeah,
left me this early to pursue ballet, you better pursue ballet. So, the poor thing, she may not have really felt like she had a choice, but she does seem to be thriving. So I'll leave it
yeah.
at that.
Well, I think if you're going to do that, you are all in, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think some kids decide that, right? That they get there and find out like, wow, if you're not all in, you probably don't belong there. And you'll get squeezed out in a hurry. And I have seen that. I've seen that from pro sports, right? Whoever goes, oh, like, yeah, I'm drafted, I'm gonna make the way. And all of a sudden, the little things start creeping in like, oh, I miss home. I'm not really taking care of myself. I'm having more fun socially than the job. And they forget, like, this is your job. Like, you're a pro now. And if you're not 100% in, I mean, like, everybody else is. And so they're just passing you fast. And it's like, oh, maybe I don't belong here. And so they kind of self select out.
That's 100% true. We watched it. We watched it, and for sure, I think she grew into it more and more as some of the kids kind of less and less. So it was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, got lucky on the timing, and for sure, fun to watch her keep growing. She's kind of early in that career, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, so what most people may not know about you, Don, is that you were a Sun Devil dancer with your little cute uniform, and all that. Like,
It was
which
cute.
cracks me up because I really want to know what they're called. If they're devil dancers, like I really want to understand that because I don't know if I'd want to be called that, but like they are the Sun Devils. This is what they are, and so you're doing this for a couple years, but your real heart is running, and so while you're staying fit because dancing, holy crap, that's a workout in itself, and you're staying fit, you're working on your running, and you say, hey, I'm going to go up to NAU, lumberjack country. And NAU, for people who don't know, is that's Northern Arizona University, Flagstaff, Arizona, 7,000 feet sea level, tons of Olympics, tons of training going on there for top level runners because of the oxygen, right? Because of the high altitude training and not easy runs because the town's at 7. So plenty of places to go up into the mountains and run at 8, 9, 10 and really breathe through a straw while you're running.
And that's what you were expected to do.
Yeah.
That was the torture that made you better.
Yeah. So you've just had this level of discipline that probably most people haven't had, or and you've really been trained in it. This is you're coached. You have someone guiding you. This is what to expect. This is what's going to happen. It's not going to be easy. Here's my expectations for you, Don. Be 10 seconds today faster than you were yesterday on this run, and through many miles of breathing through a straw, and it's going to hurt and if you haven't seen my TEDx talk on the pain exchange, this is the pain of discipline right here. Like running at altitude, biking at altitude, I have so much respect for the Tour de France. Like when you're biking, running, this is the Pyrenees, right? Like you're going up sometimes 7,000 feet in elevation. Like it's crazy. And in a single day, it's bonkers. And so it's crazy that people don't understand the physical challenges that creates on the body.
It is rough, and there were a lot of days that are 2 days. You go out and run 6 to 10 miles in the morning, and then you meet for your actual workout in the afternoon. But again, I'll credit this one to George. Growing up, when I was running, the motto in my household was, if you don't throw up, you didn't try hard enough. So
Wow.
there was like, you talk about the pain cave, you talk
Yeah.
about, there was an expectation that you were going to push yourself all the way to the end. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Have you ever have you do you continue to run day? Are you doing like half marathons? Are you doing what are you doing?
Yeah, I just been well, yeah, I still run. I took after college, I took a bit of time off. I think there's a bit of burnout that happens, but
Yeah.
now I do a lot of really fun stuff. I've done Boston a couple times. I did a just finished a wine marathon in France where you run through Bordeaux and you get a choice of water or wine at the aid stations. That's it. So lots of fun doing that. I've just, been tooling around, kind of picking up fun things. Did Ironman for a while, did about 7 or 8 of those.
You
Just
did
as time,
full irons? Oh my
yeah.
god. Did you go do Kona?
No, but my dad's been nationally ranked for a long time, and so he's
Oh,
as
really?
a
Okay.
senior athlete, he's still out there. So I've been out there, run the energy lab a few times, swam the swim. I have never biked that bike. Not, I don't love my bike, and that bike looks terrible, so we'll let that be.
So it's funny. I've never done over Olympics, right? And so I love the bike. The bike was my friend. Bike was really served me, and what didn't serve me was running.
So
And
you
you
need
know,
to know you were my favorite competitor because you get off the bike and then you got to go run, but you don't like it. And I just got done with the part I hated the most, and I was so
yes,
happy. And
yeah.
running is so psychological. So when you're running with people and they're unhappy, but you're happy, that's the end.
Yeah, so I was your favorite reel-in. You were like the one just casting and just reeling me in, right? And I I was reeling people on the bike because I was an awful swimmer. And I
Oh, me
still am
too.
a terrible swimmer. After coaching, after everything I've done, I still suck. But I love the workout. Like, I mean, I love being in the water. Like, I don't feel the joint ache, the pain. So I can't beat the water for training, but I'm just bad at it. So, All right. So let's talk a little bit about the show, which is obviously winners find a way. Winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. I love that quote from the four disciplines of execution. And, you know, Dawn, you've seen me speak. You've been in, rooms with me before. You're an EO member out of Arizona. I mean, we surround ourselves with winners. I mean, all the time. People who find a way to get it done. Puke or not puke, right? Like you're gonna find a way to get it done. Like, and George instilled that clearly in you, Dawn. And your husband certainly understands it. I'm sure your kids have seen some of this and their parents going, wow, the expectations are clear. And I mean, I say this as this altitude as I'm enjoying here, by the way. We had this other, I'm enjoying lovely Pagosa Springs here, Colorado. I don't know if you can see the mountains all the way in the background, but just incredible views here as I'm sitting in this vista at a client's event here in a retreat. But talk to me about the time when you were down, when you faced adversity and challenge, and what you did about it, how you got through it, and kind of the end result and the lesson you learned.
Yeah, I mean, I would put probably mine with anybody else's who is in the economic downturn. And the one thing I would say in that period of time, call it, I think what most people would tell you is 2009. For us was 2007. So my business is the very front end of entitlement in real estate. So if you think about the housing crisis and the overbuilding can't really happen until you have too much land entitled. We're 2 years ahead. So I would say that we were in a spot in 2007 that most people weren't even aware of yet that was coming. And I had put the company in a position where we were almost 90% faced in the private sector market, meaning we were working for developers, home builders, people who go out and buy land, take that risk on their own, put their own money in. But that also comes with a bit of risk that I didn't recognize at the time. That risk being that, everything's tied up in an LLC, that they'd close shop and go away, and that all goes away, all goes away. And by about the middle of 2007, I would say about half the people we were working with had just given everything back to the bank already. The land had already gone back to the bank. So people don't know it's coming yet, but we're feeling it on our side. So
Yep.
during that time frame early, I guess talk about how do you do it. We did a lot of things that I never thought I never thought I'd have to do. First, I laid off about 60% of the staff, and I am terrible at doing that. but that didn't have a choice. And we were locked into a really big building loan we couldn't pay. So, that became a bit of the bargaining chip. How do you look scary enough that that no one's going to come after you for the money, but be solvent enough that you can, still buy food at Walmart, kind of a thing. So we were really walking a very fine line that affected us personally. Our personal finances were in the same boat. And so, our house is tied in, the building, of course, is tied to the business. I've got the banks coming after us, and there's no work to be found. And so what happened during that time, and this goes on for quite a bit. I mean, it's like you just wake up every day, you call 100 people, you talk about trying to hit a metric, and we're starting to pick up very interesting and strange projects for people we've never heard of before. I would say it was three things that happened. One, we were with a decent bank at the time that really kept helping us, different than the bank that had these loans, and allowed us to take some lines of credit unsecured just through relationship. So unbelievable that occurred. That allowed us to tie up a few things and move in the right direction. I hired 2 employees. So I just totally forgave up my salary. I gave up my salary and, knew that had an impact, a big impact at home, different bank conversations at the time, but ended up bringing in one gentleman to chase state work, government work, and one to chase city work. Those were 2 sectors that, while they were still not doing great, were very different than the one I was in. I really learned quickly that my business was too focused in one area, and we needed to stretch that out so that this would never, ever happen again. So I would say in that category, those were happening, but we found a new niche. And what happened is there were a lot of lawsuits happening at the time. One, land could not be bought or sold because it was encumbered and with too many costs, and no one was lending. So we started going after what at the time, if you think about it, it's like a development fee. So it's a development impact fee that a lot of these municipalities charge. So we started doing traffic engineering for people, or going out and marketing that, let us do this traffic engineering for you. We're going to show why your property doesn't need to be encumbered with this impact fee the same way. So if you're going to build commercial, we don't think your commercial property is going to be as expensive and draw as many trips. And so we went through a process where we started marketing a service that, helped us help people reposition their property. The other market that, we hadn't really played in before that started really coming about is when the land got cheap, the government side of things started going after to buy it. If you're going to put in new freeways and highways, you need to go and get the land. It became a really good time to do eminent domain. And so eminent domain still requires you to purchase that property at the value of the property, or like at current value. And what we did is went in and helped our customers, clients reposition that to gain higher value. So we started looking at what could you build on there? What kind of development could you put that we could support with traffic? You don't need to do anything different, than what streets are out there now, and let them put that in place to drive a higher value for the property. Those things helped us pull through, but there were a lot of scary nights. I don't think there was probably 9 months. I don't think I slept much at all. And I'm a grinder. So, in my mind, if I'm not working, when it's stressful and something isn't working right for me, if I'm not working, I kind of feel like I'm giving up, back to that early value I was taught. Eventually we came out of that. And I would say it took a long time. It was probably 2013 before we paid back the end of the loans that we had to take to stay afloat. But if it wasn't for that, the company wouldn't be here today. And it, I should equally thank Casey because, as I gave up my salary here, he took on a lot.
Yeah, your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that. And I really identify with that I was in the maritime business at the time. And, all of a sudden banks were revaluating all the assets, right? And so in '07, we thought we just had about $80 million in assets revaluated at 18. And I'm like, and the banks freaked, right? And I thought we were on an island. we were way before all the downfalls of the banks and stuff. I thought like, are we so dumb? Like everyone was just killing it in 05, 06. Like everyone's got big plans and all of a sudden plans are getting shelved. And I'm like, man. And so one of the things that really brought me to EO was, in 910, that the company I was with at the time, I was an executive in a maritime company, and we went into the workout group and never survived. And I fired, probably over 40 families in a 60-year-old business, family business. And that's, like you said, no one's good at that. Like, and you don't even get good after 40, by the way. It's not like you become better. It's just, you just don't feel great about yourself. And every time you do it, you question like, hey, could we've had a different outcome, right? And so there's some significant challenges in it. And but when I think of 910, I started my own company. I had all the contacts in the oil business, and now all the oil movers were now considering all sorts of different things, just like you, Don, that they would never have considered 3 years before. In fact, I brought them deals 3 or 4 years before that to say like, wow, this is going to be incredible. We should do this. And they were like, we don't do that. That's not what we're in the business for. And now they're calling me going, hey, I'd like to revisit that thing you brought in '08. And I'm like, we were just trying to salvage the company. And so that was a pretty interesting thing. And I love the idea also that going into government, budgets are set a long time in advance. So government still has spending, and that's a huge deal. So, wow, I think of that value, and that's amazing.
Yeah, that
So,
ended up taking us, like, now we're in Dallas, we're in Spokane, picked up an office in Tucson, stretched into Colorado, and we're doing work throughout all of those states. But really, it's interesting that the government work tends to take us there way more than the private work. So, I mean, it all came out in a great way in the end. But yeah, at the time, it was like, just, I don't know, an inch from failure.
well, let's talk a little bit about CivTech because I mean, you've done some great positioning along the way, and you've just done some couple of superpowers that, as an engineering firm, I mean, obviously CivTech, it's almost, the CivTech engineering. Your name's almost what you do is almost in your name, right? But this is in custom, complex things, and one of the things that your projects get and what you may be best known for is you have a really scalable and repeatable marketing and sales plan that continually has you winning. And I look at that because you understand the needs of your clients, and you can speak in terms of layman terms that they can understand the challenges they're about to face. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Talk us through about, was it always that way? Did you work to get that way, or is this something that you separated yourself from other engineering firms very early?
I would say it's always been that way. I think I think that is my superpower. And I grew up in a household where my mom had her own company. She was on what I would say is on the science side. She worked in microbiology and started doing some things there. So I'd always heard a lot of big words, but then when asking questions, I think I just kind of learned how to break these things down. But I also grew up, and my dad ended up working for development companies. So I got to hear a lot about where the pain was, where engineers didn't quite understand the challenges, where they're in construction and engineers were not so smart. I'll use that kindly. That's probably not the words I heard. Not so smart about the designs they put together. And paying attention to that over time, it gave me a really good pitch. I had no idea I had a great pitch, but it just gave me a platform to go start talking, and that opened the doors for work for us really, really quickly. And the thing we try to do here is, you talk about creating a repeatable process. I didn't even know that was a skill set. I think when things come to you easily, you don't recognize that that's your superpower, but you don't understand why it's hard for everyone else. So the biggest
Mm.
transformation for me was understanding that something that seems so easy for me is really challenging for others. And so that's the number one thing I mentor here. So we'll do coffees once a month where everyone just gets to sit, and all they can ask is questions about marketing or talking to clients. It's the only thing we can talk about for that hour. I've got plenty of other people here that teach skills they're so much better at than I am. But that's the one thing here, that the more I can get people to replicate the front end of that marketing process, the less I have to rely on me being the one to do it. So, and it's a soft skill. It's hard to train.
Well, I think that pivots into your next superpower of CivTech, which is the ability to identify and hire great recruits. I mean, you have a process and a system behind that that is proven winning formula again and again. But I think it comes deeper than that, because you do two other things that really, I think, set yourself apart at CivTech. Is one is you just mentioned a great example of investing in growing your people, investing in them, in continuous learning, having these talks, being a part of where I can continue to grow and develop, as well as just having fun as a culture together. When people go through a challenging process, I love that standards are very high. And when they get into the culture, they realize why they're high, because all these people who have passed those credentials, they want to be with the best too. Even though that's a challenging environment, being with the best and winning is where I find people really want to be.
Well, the process we developed, I'd love to take credit for it, but I have to give it to Ruth Gutierrez. So she's been with me for, I would say 18 years, but maybe it's 19 now. We're all getting old together over here. And coming out of the downturn, we really didn't hire forever, but found ourselves all of a sudden in a really quick need. Picked up 4 interns immediately from school. Now these are young adults in school with even though they're engineers, there's no skill sets of what we need, and we started working on a program then. So this process for us has been in place for just over 10 years, 10, 11 years, where we start at that process early. So, and it starts with weekly check-ins, a whole training regimen that's built out on there's a full month, day by day. I can tell them what they're going to do, what they might learn, and what they can expect to have at the end. We have a big talk at the beginning, Trent, talking about the internships. We were just stating the idea of liking them or not liking them. My big talk when I go in on day one of their employment is how our hope is that we can help them find out whether they like this. But the most valuable thing they can learn is if they don't like it. If they don't like being a traffic engineer, because, there's a lot of engineers and engineering types you can be, but, it's hard to know until you go try it. And we've been able to turn that into a really successful, what I would say is a really successful recipe of one. Everyone gets trained exactly the same way. So engineering firms really struggle because you hand a project from one person to another. Someone gets overloaded, someone gets sick, someone goes on vacation. And the new engineer re-engineers. That's what we've been taught to do. It's all we know how to do is engineer, right? So that's just a huge hit to the company on budget and timeline, and how, you can't recoup it. So it became I would say it's like a secret sauce. We can take any project and transfer to any person in the office and pick up without having any part of it retouched. And that is amazing. So, but I would also say the culture that came out of that, from this kind of what I would say are Gen Zers, it sort of just coupled itself hand in hand, because we brought in this cohort and they just carried the culture forward. So all I really have to do is support the culture. It's fun. It's collaborative. They during COVID, I couldn't even keep people out of the office, no matter how hard I tried, because they love being together, which was also very interesting times. But I would just say that for us unexpectedly became such a win, and largely curated by some other good talent on my staff.
Well, I love the fact that you set these standards of training, and and by the way, if they're trained up very well, it gives them autonomy to stay inside. Yet you've developed the bumper rails around the outsides to say, hey, this is where our bailiwick is. And so I love that you've created that. I'm sure, do you geek out like every time the Italian job comes on and he's like controlling traffic in LA, and like, because I geek out on that.
For sure. I totally geek out on that. Also, so irritated when you see the police officer controlling the signal on the side and I know what he's doing. It's like it works both ways there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's there's a superpower of like so cool, and a frustration like, what is he doing?
Exactly. Like turn it green, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, let's do a quick coaching session before you got to go.
Okay.
What are this one's going to surprise some people, because I know you got a lot of custom work. I know you got a great process and of hiring and recruiting people, but you do custom work in the traffic, so geography with a lot of it. What are you working hardest on right now?
Systems, I would say systems and processes would be the number one thing. And, it's as we've grown, I would say we're at a size, or we kind of at about the 20 person mark, kind of hit a size where it couldn't be as free for all as it was. Really had to become a system. And then realized how difficult it was going to be to put a system in place that everyone was willing to follow. And the shortcoming, I would tell you, is a leadership shortcoming, but maybe not always, but in this case it is. And this is something I actually learned at Regional Leadership Academy through EO. My leadership style is very collaborative. I am not the person that's going to get in there and dictate what has to happen. It's just
Mm.
not my strength. And as you're coming to systems and processes, somebody eventually has to say, I don't care what you think. This is how we're going to do it. And recognizing that in myself, I'm really the one that has held that out the longest. I wanted everybody to agree on the process. And, quite frankly, getting all these people to agree just never came to be. So it's still been the thing we're trying to fix. And I would say that a true COO who would come in and really handle that, a true COO probably would have just drilled down and it would be done already. But I am still holding everyone's hands because I really like that collaborative workplace. So,
So I love this. I mean, first of all, great admission, right? And this is probably, first of all, for people that don't know, it's probably way better than you think it is. Like she is a superstar engineer, and and engineers have high level process. And so I really appreciate the fact, like on a continuous improvement level, this could be better. And you recognize that. And I also love the idea that you recognize your own leadership that, hey, maybe I'm not the person to be managing this level of the day-to-day grind of the process, that everything, because you would like it to be more collaborative. Have you gone out and secured that COO, that integrator to be that honcho and hold the line?
no, no, and there's actually a real reason behind it. But the way that I've got around it is I've moved myself out of the process. So while I get to be the last voice of the checkbox of the process, we use our team quarterlies to set the goals. A lot of them are process driven, or about making a process so that we can drive it. And we assign that to the people who are really good at doing that work. And then the only thing that I do with that is maybe add in a few, things to make it feel softer. But everyone else here, if you look at my team, they're engineers and they've got that skill set. In terms of bringing that person in, it would be amazing. But because of the government side of our work, we're measured on our overhead. And so until I get to a better ratio on that, I just can't put the overhead back in place. So this is the pros and cons of the work that we do and who our clients are. But
Yeah.
it's I've got those guys here and they're great.
Yep. Well, and I love that, what I'm hearing you say, and I think everyone should hear this, is that as a leader, we're not great at everything. And we hire these fabulous people who don't think like we do, who have different experiences that we do, who love to lean into process, and it is a superpower of theirs. And hey, let them do it. You don't have to own everything of all the lanes in your business and own everything of all the finance, the marketing, the sales, the engineering, the process, the KPIs. Like there are a lot of different bailiwicks, and everyone is not expected to own everything. And I think that comes with me with technology. I turn that over on my group all the time because while I love it, I know enough to be dangerous. Like I need someone in that seat who really gets it and who sees the holistic side of it, which is what I think CivTech sees over other engineers, right? Because engineers go, oh, blinders. Oh, this is the only way it'll work because I see exactly how I can do it and my process works. Oh, sorry, that affects you negatively over there, but this is how we see it working. And it's like, oh no, like it has to work for everybody. And CivTech really gets that. And so I think from my side, I've had to humble that too, because and recognize like while I enjoy it and I find it interesting, I'm not the person to drive it.
And I
So,
think that's a lesson. Yeah, that's so true.
ooh, yeah. So if you had real quick before you got to go, and I know you got to run here. Thank you so much for being on the Winners Find a Way show, Dawn. I want you to, for folks that are being challenged today, and I mean, I don't know if we're not on kind of a front end of like '07, '08 when the calm before the storm kind of thing, where it's rearing its head for certain industries. Because I feel that a little bit today
Yeah.
because I'm industry agnostic, work with a lot of different brands, right? And what would you tell somebody who's faced with some adversity right now? What would your best advices be to them?
It would really be to get gritty. I mean, I would say my style is I'm a worker. I love digging in. Don't be afraid of I'm like my industry to go after this idea of turning over impact fees. No one thought of that, right? But don't be afraid to go out there and really test something brand new. And I think those ideas came to me though, honestly, not when I wasn't working. They came to me in the time that I took 48, 72 hours to just, I don't even know if it was relaxing, but I was really trying not to work and the idea came. And then it was about being brave enough to go approach people with it. But I would just say get gritty when it's hard. I think as people, we've got to remember I think we get really soft with all the good things that happen to us. Sometimes you got to go back and get hard and get gritty.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. I mean, for me, I'm hearing gritty means take action. Like you got to
Oh,
get in and look at what I can do, not what I can't do. There's no victims here. Like, hey, you're facing an adversity, it's facing a challenge, whatever the reason, you want to figure that out. But right now, it's a time of what can I do? What can I do to move forward? And part of that, I think, is being focused on the work during the day and taking that time because I'm sure a lot of great ideas are coming to you on your runs during the evening when I'm going to relax my time, and some of the best stuffs are coming that because I know when sometimes I'm in full action, I can't see the forest through the trees.
yeah, those long runs in the morning, they really set my day up. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there about that, but it's really where I do a lot of the headspace talking before I ever come to work. So I've already had every conversation before I get here. And those were great moments for me when and plus you're kind of out and you're seeing things. You're like, I don't know, like even if that was what spurred the idea, right? You see a sign for something
Yeah.
but yeah.
And I think that's a great value of EO. You see other companies, what they're doing in hard times, how they're addressing to a challenge, getting some ideas through your group of how they might be facing adversities and opening up different lenses that you might not see otherwise. I love that. So for everybody thank you so much to Dawn Cartier for just coming on Winners Find a Way. I mean, first of all, love this woman. She's a fabulous entrepreneur, Phoenix, Arizona based, just incredible CivTech. What a brand and unique to her and her service. For everybody, please join us every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, YouTube on our Leadershipity channel, and you can always find our podcast on all the major channels. For everybody else, Dawn, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Winners Find a Way.